Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Well, that happened. Leafs fans, Sens fans, I expect you're feeling pretty good. Welcome back to Game Over. Welcome to a Game Over crossover. I'm Dominic from Game Over Toronto. With me, Charlie from Game Over Ottawa. We're going to have some fun breaking down this last game. Well, Charlie, I think you're going to have fun. I'm just going to, if I had any hair left, I'd be pulling it out after that one. That was an interesting matchup. The Sens looking good as they inch ever closer to securing that playoff spot, and the Leafs not looking so great as we watch first place in the division disappear off into the distance. Especially since the Habs of all teams did us a favor tonight against the Panthers. We couldn't beat them, but the Habs have got them. So, oh yeah, good times, Leafs fan, good times. We'll get into the game. We'll break everything down. We'll have some Leafs Sens discussion here on this Game Over crossover Battle of Ontario edition. Charlie, I'm going to throw things right over to you first. Tell me what you thought of this game overall.
I thought, I think in a very Sens fashion, it felt very one-sided for the first, I'd say, 40 minutes. Things kind of fell apart for Ottawa after that. Sens with, I think the deserved win here tonight. I think they were the better team overall. It wasn't quite as lopsided as I thought it might be by the end of the game. That third period, things kind of got a little bit scary for the Sens. And also on the note of the Montreal Canadiens, very funny that, Sens fans have a very different opinion on that game with the result there, with not to, Sens fans, we're not really looking at Florida all that much right now. Although Sens are 4 points back of both Toronto and Tampa now. So
yeah,
maybe I should be paying attention to that. Maybe I should. I'm only looking at the wild card race right now, so maybe I should be focusing on that a little bit more.
You're moving. They're moving into that position where, maybe it's not the most likely scenario, but it's
right.
Looking more and more possible every day that you could overtake either the Leafs or the Lightning. And let's be honest, it's the way things are looking right now. It's more likely to be the Leafs than the Lightning. Lightning's still looking relatively strong out there. Leafs, I don't know what's been going on with the Leafs lately. The chat is already fired up here. Terry in the live chat says Leafs season all but done. We'll slip out of the playoffs. Remember, I told you I also had Leafs losing 4-2 tonight. Yeah, it's I know it's, we're fans, so we're in that sort of headspace of the world is falling apart, the sky is falling, and I try to avoid that. With sports, because it's a long season. Things go up and down. There are moments where the team looks amazing, and you think if they could just play the Stanley Cup final right now with us, it would be amazing. And then you have other times like this where it feels like the sky is falling. But this is a moment where, coming out of the deadline, you make a couple of big acquisitions. You think, here it is. This is our chance. This is our shot. We're in a tight race for first in the division. And I would describe the last couple of Leafs games as looking like playoff hockey, in the sense that the Leafs played the way they play in the playoffs. No more than 2 goals. Not allowed to score any more than that. It's all Nylander. Everything runs through Nylander. Matthews and Marner start to vanish. Matthews, he got a goal tonight. Kind of a funky one. We'll talk about that for sure. But I'm feeling like I'm seeing shades of the last couple of playoff rounds that the Leafs have played, where you think this team has the talent, it has the drive, it could be great, and instead we're just kind of missing every opportunity. But we'll get to that some more in a bit. Let's take a look at things from a Sens perspective. Obviously, big 2 points for you guys, moving up in the standings, or at the very least solidifying your place in the playoff spot. What's the big takeaway from the Sens perspective of this game? What was the moments that you looked at in this one where you go positive or negative about what it says about the Sens season so far?
I wouldn't say it's this game specifically that where I've seen this, but it's definitely helped cemented that this team, this might come back to bite me if they suddenly fall off and miss the playoffs. But this team does feel so different in just that. In previous teams, and I don't want to put all of this on DJ Smith by any means, but teams of the past, Sens of the past, they were not good at holding a lead. They get that lead and then they just coast for the third period. I don't know if they just were gassed. Like, I don't know if it was an issue of just like being able to like maintain that level of play for 60 minutes. I don't know if it was the game plan of like, all right, we scored 3 goals. We're not good enough to score anymore. Let's just try and keep the puck out of our net. I don't know what the game plan was with those teams of the past, but this team feels like, they get the win. Well, I think the stat is, I think with these 2 wins against Toronto and Boston, I want to say the Sens are something like 25-1-1 when they lead through 2 periods this season.
That's pretty good. So
being used to watching this team blow a lead pretty consistently, it's a completely different feeling team. So I that's my main takeaway is this team is able to number one, hold lead, and number 2, like bounce back after a rough play. Like you kind of hinted at earlier with that Matthews goal. The Sens of the past would have shut down after that. This team can, number one, fight back and like play through. Like I think the big difference is this team has a much shorter memory, and are able to kind of bounce back and hold that lead and play well throughout the game, even though the third wasn't great. They can hold a lead though is the main thing with this team, and I think that's the main difference between them. Maintaining that 5-point pad they have on the first wildcard spot right now, and being out of it by the first week of December in past seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about, I think, one thing that has been a big part of the Sens' success this year, and a big part of any team's success, the Leafs too, goaltending. Linus Ullmark, as we talked about, he had that brain fart. That Matthews goal, nobody should let that goal in. My roommate doesn't watch a lot of hockey, but he was watching with me for that portion of the game, and he goes, "How is this a professional goalie?" And I'm like, "No, he's actually good. That was just a big mistake." And he made the mistake with the, who should be the most dangerous guy on the ice out there, Austin Matthews, taking advantage of it. But otherwise, especially in the third period, a lot of big saves, lot of key, making the saves at key moments for the Sens. What'd you think of Ullmark's game tonight?
Yeah, I'd say outside of that, I mean, pretty rough play. Like it's just one of those funny things where the puck just kind of bounces off his stick in a way he didn't expect. Chabot read the play. I was like, all right, he's got it. Let me just kind of quickly go out here, try and get myself set up for a pass from Ullmark, and because of that, the way the puck bounces, it just kind of goes away from both Ullmark and Chabot on that play, and he panics, as I think anyone would in that scenario. But like, on the whole, on the season, Ullmark did have a bit of a slow start to the season, but since then he's been unbelievable. Another big difference for the team, not just this team is able to hold a lead. This team is able to hold a lead because we can, as a fan base, for the first time, we're like confident in that person in net. Last season between Forsberg and Korpisalo, they both had an 890. This season and this season, Ullmark has just been unbelievable. And even on some of his weaker games, like that game against Boston, I'm sure you saw that crazy diving save he made. Has been playing everywhere.
Wild.
That came minutes after he gave up a third goal on 8 shots. So just like the rest of the team, he's got such a short memory. He's able to make some incredible saves not long after giving up some stinkers. He's been so great for the team this season. I can't believe that I have a confidence in the guy in net in Ottawa. It's such a nice change.
Yeah, and he kind of did that tonight too. He makes that goof with the Matthews goal. The Nylander goal, that was just an insane individual effort from William Nylander.
Yeah.
He looked like the kid. Like when I see Nylander play, it sometimes takes me back to playing house league, when there would be one kid who was on like the select team or played double A or something, but still played house league for some reason, and they would come in and they could just do anything on their own with the puck, and they would skate around, and sometimes they'd lose it and sometimes they'd score. Willie sometimes looks like he's just doing that on the NHL ice, so you can't really blame him for that one. Matthews goal, big goof, whatever. But then he makes a save with his mask a few minutes later. He has a huge glove save on Morgan Riley. He robs Tavares in the dying moments. He was very solid as the Leafs tried to put a press on in the final minutes of the game, and big part of the win. On the Leafs side of things, Anthony Stolar's got the start tonight. Very much seems like Craig Berube wants to run with Stolars. It seems like Stolars is going to be his guy going into the playoffs. Joe Wool looks like he'll settle into the backup role, but not too far back. I think they won't be. I don't think they'll hesitate to go to Joe should things take a turn in the playoffs as they did last year with Samsonov. But Stolarz continues to be solid. I don't think he's quite as lights out as he was to start the year, but he's played solid. I will say one thing that concerned me is that the first two Sens goals were from basically the exact same spot on the ice. Sanderson and Perron, both basically right from the face-off dot, right there, and they were both sort of the same shot, kind of top shelf, and I was looking at it
both
going,
looking like Ovi on that one.
Yeah, I was looking at that going, is that our weakness? Is that your weakness there, Anthony? Is that the kryptonite? Is that the shot you're never going to stop? So I do wonder a little bit about that. I hope Leafs goalie coaches maybe spend a little bit of time preparing for those sorts of shots, because you'll need to make the saves. Let me ask you something. Ridley Grigg. Yeah. Is he a factor in every Sens game, or is it just the Leafs games? Because he felt like he was all over this one, including at the end with his 3 misses at the empty net. And we're like, oh, that's why he took the slap shot last year. He seems to be such a big factor in these Leafs Sens games. What's he represent? What's he mean to the Senators as a whole?
He's like, okay, so I think the nicest. I don't want this to come off as like a dig at all, because it's nothing but positivity here. He really at times feels like Brady Tkachuk light. Okay. Like he's like a third line Brady Tkachuk. He's not going to put up the same numbers. If anything, he might be Brady Tkachuk with a bit more defensive ability. But he's got that. I mean, he loves to get into the puck battles and everything. Actually, real quick before I get into this, so the fight.
Yeah.
The fight that happened, do you think that's just like, the deadline acquisition trying to, look, trying to like make a point? Number one, well, obviously, like the Leafs were down by 1 goal.
Yeah.
For the Lawton Greg fight. Now, do you think that's, is Greg just the guy that happened to line up next to him off that faceoff, or is it the knowledge of, hey, Leafs fans hate this guy?
I wonder if there was an element of that, because Scott Lawton has come in. Both Scott Lawton and Brandon Carlo, that's his name, right? I'm having a brain fart here. Both of them came in, and there were high expectations for them. Lawton in particular has been somebody that Leafs fans have kind of expected might be a member of this team before the end of the year, and lo and behold, here he is. And neither of them got off to the greatest start post-deadline with the Leafs. So I think Lawton is trying to prove himself, trying to show his value, show his worth. I think tonight he played a lot better than he has in other games. Still maybe not everything everybody has hoped he would be, but there's, we're still 3-4 games into this. It's no time to write him off just yet. But I do think it's definitely an element of him just wanting to show, like, yes, I am here. I am part of this. You wanted toughness from me. I can bring the toughness in every regard, and not just hits, not just going to net. I'll also fight somebody. And with Greg, there wasn't much talk about the empty netter. There hasn't been, this is the 3rd game.
Right.
It's sort of faded into the memory. It was only when they started bringing it up on the broadcast, like, oh, right, yeah, that did happen last year, and Morgan lost his mind and got suspended for 5 games, rightfully so, and all that stuff. So I don't know if it was still like a let me get you back for this from last year, or if it was who's been a pest tonight, who's been annoying me tonight,
right,
or whoever has the misfortune of lining up against me, if there's somebody who might throw the gloves down like Ridley Grigg. So that was my read on it. I don't think it was the empty net thing. The only time I kept thinking about the empty net thing was when Ridley Grigg missed the empty net about 3 times at the end of the game. Well, he got one in once, but he was about a foot offside. But it was like, here is the perfect opportunity to flip the narrative on it. You've got the magical ending. He was going to do it again. He was going to seal it, and he missed. And then Marner sacrificed his body to stop it the other time, and it just seemed like here's the opportunity, and they just couldn't turn it around and get it into the net, couldn't get it past Allmark. But I think because of that incident last year, Grigg is kind of a fascinating figure to me, because I think he understands the Battle of Ontario in a way that maybe most guys playing don't, because I don't think prior to that, I don't think there was a ton of animosity between the current Leafs and the current Sens. It's not 2004 with Daniel Alfredsson and Wade Retton and Darcy Tucker and Ty Domi and everything. I don't think there's that.
Yeah.
But the fans, we remember it. We've heard of it. If people are younger, the rivalry, and so I think Sens fans would love a moment like that, and Leafs fans, we would love a moment like that going the other way. So
sure.
Yeah. So I think he gets it. And he was playing to that last year.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Greg is just he's. I mean, I understand why Leafs fans might think it slightly differently, but Greg is absolutely one of those guys who's just he's just so in it every single game. Like he's one of those guys that just doesn't take a shift off ever. And I know I realize that sounds silly. That's mostly the NHL, but he's just one of those guys who's always in it, always trying to get under your skin. He just maybe tends to be a little better at it when playing the Leafs.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that everybody would love to have him on your team. That's what everybody says about Marchand, right? Like, everybody'd love to have him on their team, but he pisses you off when you're playing against him. And he really knew how to get under Leafs fan skin last year. Any other big thoughts from this game? Anything else that really stood out to you from the Sens perspective?
A couple things. I think a lot of this defensively for the Sens. If I'm getting very specific, I'm a little nervous about Artem Zub. He had a really, really rough night tonight between a couple of just poor defensive plays and then that late game penalty, the delay of game.
Yeah, in a game where the refs really didn't want to call any penalties. I mean, they called the one on OEL earlier, but there were several other things going both ways that could have been called, and they were skipping it. And he did the one thing they can't not call, which is obviously flip the puck over the glass.
Yeah. The Sens are also worth noting. They're taking fewer too many men penalties than they were earlier on in the season. However, I gotta say those two really poor changes in the second period that resulted in chances for the Leafs. I don't know if that's just I need to pay more attention to this. I don't know if that's a second period issue. I don't know if it's a long change that they're having so much difficulty timing or what. But guys, you gotta be a little bit better on that. No, I don't. I tend to. I don't know how you typically are. I tend to get a little nitpicky on wins. I tend to kind of look at the small mistakes that kind of bug me, just because I'm at the point now where I'm looking at this team and thinking about playoffs, and I'm going, well, would this have been okay in the playoffs? And actually, speaking of which, I just want to also bring off as well, just in the name of the Battle of Ontario, which, can we just for a second enjoy the fact that for the first time since 2004, well, no, not the first time, they both made the playoffs in 17, but it didn't feel like the rivalry was fully back, because I don't think either fan base was all that confident that their team was going to be good. I think we can confidently say the Battle of Ontario is back. They're finally, looks like they're probably both going to be teams that are good for more than one season now. It's a huge deal. Having said that, though, the Leafs are now 8-10 against playoff teams in the East.
Yeah, yeah, and was it now 4 in a row? Sens wins in the Battle of Ontario. They're doing.
I think it's 5 total. It's definitely a season. It's a season sweep now, at least for the regular season.
Yeah.